In Argentina, President Alberto Fernandez condemned the judicial and the media persecution against Vice President Christina Fernandez de Kirchner. Nicaragua sent 35 containers and food to Cuba for the families affected by the fire at the supertanker base in Matanzas. Palestinian prisoners went on hunger strike to protest inhumane treatment by the Israeli prison administration. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. The president of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez, condemned on Monday the judicial and media persecution directed against the vice president of the nation, Christina Fernandez de Kirchner. In a statement, the Argentine president said that none of the acts attributed to the vice president has been proven and that the government reiterates its adherence to the constitutional principle of innocence. Likewise, he reiterated and stressed his solidarity with Christina Fernandez de Kirchner in the face of this persecution of the so-called root cause. In Argentina, without evidence and with witnesses that deny the accusations, the prosecution requests a 12-year prison sentence and a lifetime suspension for Vice President Christina Fernandez.
In the ninth and last plea hearing, prosecutors Sergio Mola and Diego Luciani requested on Monday 12 years of imprisonment for Christina Fernandez de Kirchner in the so-called Vialidad case, which investigates alleged corruption cases. Fernandez, who has political immunity due to her position as vice president and president of the Senate, has been on trial since 2019, along with 12 other people, for allegedly directing bids for public roadworks in the province of Santa Cruz between 2003 and 2015. The prosecutor accuses her for alleged crimes of aggravated illicit association and aggravated mismanagement against the public treasure when she was president of the country. Prosecutor Luciani also requested that the vice president and the rest of the former official charged be permanently banned from holding public office. For the sentence to be enforced, it must be ratified by the Supreme Court of Justice. Therefore, even if convicted, Fernandez remains free and could be a candidate in the 2023 presidential and legislative elections. The sentence is based on new accusations that were not included in that trial. Almost all of their arguments come from other files that the judges authorized them to use on the last day of the trial. This is to say that they were never discussed in the hearings, a case in which their own witnesses denied the accusations against Fernandez. On Monday afternoon, the Second Federal Oral Court rejected the vice president's request to extend her statement during Tuesday's hearing. After learning of the ruling, Fernandez stated that she's not before a court of the Constitution, but before a media judicial firing squad, which denies her the right to the exercise of defense in the face of issues that never appeared in the prosecutor's indictment that she attended in 2019. Fernandez said that through her social media network she will demonstrate why she is not allowed to speak at the trial after the script that she claims the prosecutors put together, especially Luciani, who has a personal relationship with one of the members of a tribunal, Rodrigo Jimenez Uriburu, with whom he played football matches at the country house of former President Mauricio Macri.
We remain on topic. Clashes were reported at the residence of Argentine Vice President Christina Fernandez in Buenos Aires. The clashes were between supporters and opponents of Vice President Christina Fernandez, following the prosecutor's request to imprison her for 12 years. In an attempt to dissuade the protests, police fired tear gas, affecting demonstrators and reporters covering the news. Christina Fernandez described the lawfare against her as a judicial media firing squad. Social and workers' movements, and as well as political leaders, have ratified their support for the vice president. Also in Argentina, left-wing social organizations on Monday held a demonstration in downtown Buenos Aires where they mourned and buried the main auxiliary. The protesters walk in procession along a central venue that connects the government house with the labor ministry in the Argentine capital. Over the last weeks, social movements urged the workers' central union to call for a general strike. In Argentina, the minimum wage reached 47,850 Argentine pesos, which is roughly $340 in the official rate market and about $160 in the informal market. It sits well below the amount of money a family needs to fulfill its basic needs. According to official figures, inflation in July was 7.4%, while the year-over-year core rate climbed to 71%, placing Argentina among the countries with the highest inflation in the world. And the former president of Brazil, Lula da Silva, who is leading in the polls this year's presidential election race, spoke about Juan Guaidó during a press conference in Sao Paulo on Monday.
I didn't agree when the entire European Union recognized Guaidó as president of Venezuela. He's an imposter. This has been proven, and I have learned to always respect the self-determination of the people of any nation. I can't meddle, and I had an extraordinary relationship with Venezuela.
Former Brazilian President Lula da Silva also spoke about the importance of good relations with Venezuela.
Brazil is going to treat Venezuela with respect. I hope Europe treats it with respect. And I hope the United States reestablishes relations with Venezuela. There is only one way to reestablish democratic coexistence, and that is to stop criminalizing people. I was happy to see that Biden is trying a new approximation with Venezuela. I hope it is not just because of the petroleum. I hope that it is because of civilization.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador affirmed that there will be no impunity in the case of the forced disappearance of the Ayotzinapa Normalista students following the arrest of the former Attorney General Jesus Murillo Caram. Murillo Caram's arrest came a day after the federal government presented the preliminary conclusions of the investigation made not only about the whereabouts of the Normalista students, but also about the way in which those responsible agreed to conceal the facts and build what is known as the historical truth. During his morning press conference this Monday, President López Obrador stated that it will be the prosecutor's office who will determine the existence of others involved and assure that there will be no impunity for those implicated. Haitians demonstrate against the government of Ariel Henry on the 231st anniversary of the anti-slavery general uprising to demand an end to violence against the population by the criminal gangs. In this sense, the political movements called for a sit-in in front of the bank's offices in Cape Haiti to denounce the depreciation of at least 40% of the national currency so far this year. They also called for a massive mobilization to condemn the administration of the Premier, Ariel Henry, due to the increase in insecurity, causing more than 16,000 people to flee to seek refuge from the violence. In this context, the organization National Mobilization Space, together with labor and student unions, informed about the realization of a concentration to demand measures to confront the severe crisis the country is going through. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back. The Nicaraguan government sent 35 containers of food to Cuba for the families affected by the fire at the supertanker base in Matanzas. The Nicaraguan ship Augusto Cesar Sandino arrived at the port of Moriel loaded with beans, rice, corn, coffee, and cooking oil. Nicaragua's ambassador to Cuba, Alejandro Solis, ratified the commitment of brotherhood and solidarity between both nations and expressed the intention of reinforcing the bonds of brotherhood between both nations. For her part, Cuban Minister of Domestic Trade, Betsy Diaz, thanked Nicaragua for its solidarity support and stressed that the gesture came at a time of deep deep sorrow for the Cuban people following the accident at the supertanker base in Matanzas. And on Monday, Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla expressed his gratitude to Bolivia after the arrival of a donation of food, medicines, and medical supplies. The head of Cuban diplomacy said the people are deeply grateful to the Bolivian people and its president, Luis Arce, after the arrival of a shipment of 62 tons of solidarity aid worth over $1 million. This donation will be destined to the victims of the large-scale fire at the supertanker base in the western province of Matanzas, which affected neighboring communities. In Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro Moros described as extraordinary the renewal of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela's grassroots. The head of state congratulated militants after the voting of the so-called street chiefs, whose function is to guide, organize, and mobilize communities. On August 27th, the assemblies will be held to elect the community leaders, and on September 3rd, those of the so-called Bolivar Chavez battle units will be elected. In addition, the political organization ratified Nicolás Maduro as its leader, who first assumed the presidency of the PSUV in July 2014. In the United States, 3 police officers in the state of Arkansas were suspended after a video showing a violent arrest. Local authorities issued a statement detailing that the 3 officers have been discharged, pending further investigation by Arkansas State Police. The video, recorded by a bystander near the city of Mulberry, shows how the police officers hold a white man while violently assaulting him. Police authorities also stated that the suspect, Randall Worcester, 27 years old, was arrested on charges of terrorist threats, resisting arrest, and assault. Torrential downpours caused flooding on the Monday in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, in the area in the southern United States, submerging vehicles underwater and leading authorities to ask citizens to refrain from going out to the streets. The area is also close to breaking the record of the month of August with the highest rainfall ever recorded, with a total of 10.08 inches, 25.6 centimeters, meteorological authorities reported. Several videos shared on social networks show avenues turned into rivers by the rain, vehicles submerged in water, and even people who had to swim to get out of their cars, almost completely covered by the flood. The heavy rains come after a period of drought that affected much of North Texas in recent months. Now we move on to other topics. In Ukraine, at least 2 people are reported dead after an attack by Ukrainian military forces at the Antonovsky Bridge in the city of Kherson. A spokesperson for the emergency services of the province of Kherson also reported that some 16 people were injured after the attack launched with the U.S. HIMARS systems. The official also said that the impact was on a passing ferry, causing injuries to the passengers. According to the official, the bridge was hit several times and severely damaged, but did not collapse, as the Ukrainian media claimed. Russia's Federal Security Service denounced that the Ukrainian Secret Service is behind the murder of the daughter of the Russian philosopher Alexander Dugin. The agency said the murderer is a citizen of Ukraine, identified as Natalia Vovk, who arrived in Russia together with her 12-year-old daughter on July 23rd in order to organize Dugino's murder. The suspect is said to have rented an apartment in Moscow, in the same building where the victim lived, and where she planned the attack. The Russian authorities have issued a warrant for the arrest and extradition of the perpetrator, who fled to Estonia after committing the crime. The Russian media published a photo of the identity card of Vovk, also known under the surname of Choban. According to preliminary data, the woman had been a member of the Azov regiment. And lawyers in the United Kingdom voted in favor of an indefinite strike that will start in September. According to the announcement, over 1,800 lawyers voted to strengthen the strike, which will begin on September the 5th. During the vote to defend the strike, some 258 attorneys were in favor of continuing with the current action, and some 207 were in favor of ending the protests. In the midst of the debates, the lawyers' strike continues in a low profile and alternating manner, and which this day hope that the effect of the indefinite strike will be to increase pressure on the government to secure salary increases and legal aid funding of up to 25%. In this context, members of the United Union, including crane and machine operators, as well as dockers, stopped work on Sunday to demand wage increases amid a major purchasing power crisis in the United Kingdom. Due to the wave of protests taking place in the UK in recent weeks, transport and postal workers, as well as more than 2,000 workers at the largest container port of Felixstowe, joined the various strikes. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Palestinian prisoners announced on Monday the start of a hunger strikes in an attempt to put an end to abuses by the Israeli prison administration. More than 1,000 prisoners are expected to participate in the hunger strike. The detainees belong to all Palestinian political factions, including Hamas, the Islamic Jihad, and the ruling Fatah faction headed by the current president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. The prisoners claim that the Israeli prison service has not fulfilled its promise to ease the severe restrictions imposed on them following the escape of 6 inmates from the Gilboa prison last year. The Israeli Supreme Court also rejected an appeal to free a Palestinian prisoner who has been on hunger strike for several months after protesting his detention without charge. On Monday, Lebanon launches a specialist submarine to search for migrant shipwreck victims. The wreckage of the death boat was found at a depth of 470 meters, around 90 minutes off the coast of Tripoli. At least 85 migrants, mostly Lebanese, along with Syrians and Palestinians, were believed to have been on the boat, heading to Italy to seek asylum. A total of 48 people were rescued and 7 bodies retrieved, while 30 people, mostly women and children, are still missing. Major General Ashraf Shirifi, the former head of the Lebanese Internal Security Forces, said the submarine will help investigations into the tragedy by photographing the capsized boat and will also retrieve the remains of the vessel and the victims' bodies. In Algeria, at least 43 people were killed and nearly 200 more injured during the fires that broke out in recent days. According to the National Gendarmerie report, the fires affected the rural and urban areas in at least 14 governorates, including the northeastern region of El Tarif near the Tunisian border. Authorities also reported the arrest of 13 people suspected of being the perpetrators of the arson attacks. Iraqi rescue workers continue on Monday with the search for survivors trapped under the rubble of the Katharat Ali Man Ali shrine following a landslide. The bodies of 2 pilgrims were pulled from an Iraqi shrine 2 days after its partial collapse in a landslide, taking an overall toll to 7 dead, rescuers said. Emergency workers were trying to remove the rubble and debris from the shrine, known as Katharat Ali Man Ali, near the Shiite holy city of Karbala in central Iraq. So far, the bodies retrieved from the site were a child, 4 women, and 2 men, while 3 children had been rescued and rushed to a hospital. And the families of the Sierra Leoneans who died in the protests against the spiraling cost of living arrived at a morgue in the capital Freetown on Monday to identify their loved ones. A small crowd gathered outside the Konak hospital, where officials said the remains of 31 people were waiting to be identified. Morgue official Shine Kamara said the majority of the bodies had bullet wounds, adding that 5 were policemen and 26 were civilians. Clashes occurred in Freetown and other cities, such as Makeni and Camagüey, in the north of the country on August 10th, when an economic protest descended into violence and chaos between the security forces and the demonstrators. And white rhinos are among some of the most endangered species of mammal in the world. These two, known as Najin and Faru, are one of the 2 genetically different species of the white rhino, the southern white rhino and northern white rhino. Since 2018, Najin and Faru have been the only northern white rhino left in the world. The dramatic reduction in their species has been due to decades of rampant poaching. Their horns have long been used as carving material and prized in traditional medicine for their supposed healing properties. Efforts have long been placed to ensure their survival. These include IVF treatments and more drastic steps to prevent them from being poached, such as dehorning so they are less attractive to the poachers. A new report released by the IUCN SSC African and Asian Rhino Specialist Group and the traffic suggests that rhino poaching rates have been on the decline since 2018. TeleSUR English continues to grow. Its signal now reaches Europe. You can order it from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on the screen are in place since July 1st. Quite soon, further changes will be implemented for the signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now more than ever, the world connects to us and our stories are heard in other farther away nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. So we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. And now you can also follow us on TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.